In this video, I'm going to show you how to complete the 4th floor of the Trial of Sekhemas and defeat Zarokh the Temporal, either for your 4th Ascendancy or just to farm the Time Lost Jewels or as unique drops. I'll be going over some general tips for the trial, but won't be going into every single mechanic and the previous floors in each of their boss fights, assuming you're familiar with the majority of that from previous Ascensions. If that's not the case, you may want to watch some other videos first. Last month I posted a video going over the basics of both trials, and another covering floors 1 to 3 of Trial of Sekhemas, and those will both be linked in the description of this video if you'd like to check them out. Now that that's out of the way, if you're like me, you probably got your first 2 Ascensions while playing through the campaign. Maybe you struggled a little bit at first, but then you finally got them both, and eventually went back and got your 3rd Ascension. But the thought of the 4th may have been a bit daunting. And then you hear people online talking about how brutal the 4th one is, and how it's overtuned and unrealistic for a lot of players to achieve within a normal league, and then if GGG wants it to be something accessible to most players, then they should be adjusted. So you decide it's probably not worth trying at the time. And then you're playing through the endgame, keep coming across these keys for them, and now you're sitting here plowing through tier 15 maps, already done some of the pinnacle boss fights, and have a stash full of keys, just kinda dreading it, but thinking, man, I really should go back and do that. Well, if that's you, I've got some great news. This is gonna be a breeze. If that's not you though, don't worry, it still shouldn't be too bad as long as you're at least in the mid to late 70s. It'll just take some time and a bit of luck with the RNG gods, but it's totally doable. In Trial of Sekhemas, you must complete 4 floors of rooms and work your way through a map akin to a roguelike, where you're choosing which room to go into, including which boons and afflictions you get. The key here is to stack up honor resistance and get as many good boons as you can and as few afflictions as possible. Your relics should prioritize honor resistance up to 75%, followed by increased life or defenses, increased movement speed or dodge roll distance, and then any others that you want. Use the trial map to your advantage, always looking as far ahead as possible, and plan your route to give yourself the best odds. Seek out boons, but not at the cost of afflictions. It's almost never worth taking on an affliction for a boon. There are rare exceptions, but generally speaking, it's just not worth it. That said, pledge rooms aren't horrible because you do get the choice of whether to take on the pledge or not after you complete the room and can see exactly what the pros and cons are. So you don't have to avoid them, but if there are rooms without a downside, you'll almost always want to take those instead. You'll also want to be collecting as much sacred water as you can so that you can purchase more boons from merchants. When it comes to the boons, you want to prioritize increasing movement speed and damage, more defenses and life, restoring honor before or after rooms and increasing honor restored, monsters dealing less damage or having less life, and revealing additional rooms on the trial map. Early on, reduced merchant prices and more sacred water are very strong. Towards the end, they're not as powerful and their benefit drops off a bit. For afflictions, you should definitely avoid ones that make you deal less damage or hinder your movement, and any that make monsters stronger with more life or by dealing more damage, as these will make the fights longer, more dangerous, and a bigger threat to your honor. Avoid anything that makes it so that you see less rooms on the map, have unknown afflictions on the map, or are taken to random rooms at times. These make your run much more reliant on good RNG, and a single bad affliction can kill the entire thing. Early on, you should also avoid taking anything that increases merchant prices or reducing merchant options, anything that limits your sacred water or honor restored, and those dealing damage on room completion. Over the course of the whole trial, these add up and can be a huge detriment. Then there are a few afflictions that really just depend on your build or where you're at in the trial. If you don't use energy shields, then taking one that removes your energy shield is a freebie, whereas for me, it would probably destroy my run. Increasing damage taken on low life should be fine for most builds, but if you find yourself at low life, it could easily kill you. And not being able to restore your honor until after the next boss usually isn't a problem at all on the first 2 floors, or if you're near the end of the floor and at or near max honor, or you know that you won't have any way to restore honor before the next boss anyways. If you follow these recommendations, unless you have horrible RNG, it should set you up pretty nicely for the final boss. Zarokh the Temporal is a much more difficult boss than the others leading up to it, but like I said, if you followed my suggestions, you'll have an easier time. It's worth noting that you cannot pause this fight, so go in prepared. He has a lot of health and is resistant to each element, but hopefully your boons can help with that and you have elemental penetration if you rely on elemental damage. In my footage, I think I'm level 91 or 92 here and have quite a few boons, which is why he goes down pretty easily. He only has a few moves, but can one-shot you if you're not careful. One of the first things he does will be teleport to a random location and shoot out these orbs or bubbles here. They're pretty easy to avoid and don't seem to do a ton of damage if they do hit you. He will do that multiple times throughout the fight, but if he teleports to the center of the room, immediately run to one of the corners. At this point, he will spin around, I believe 3 times, shooting out lightning in front of him, and fill the room with these time-stopping bubbles. If you step in them, you'll get frozen in place for about 2 seconds. If you're ranged and confident after the lightning passes, you could creep forward and deal a little bit of damage between each wave of lightning, but you'll want to get back in the corner before the lightning comes back around, and don't run into the bubbles. To be safe though, I recommend just waiting it out. My one death in this fight was from this mechanic, but it was just because I didn't realize what he was doing until it was too late, and was sitting on top of him when the lightning went off. After that, he should go back to his normal moves. Sometimes he will throw out this slow moving orb with a big AoE circle around it. I believe that just temporarily slows your movement speed, but either way, best to just stay out of it. At some point, he will disappear and not pop back up on his own. When this happens, you're about to enter the one-shot mechanic, and you have to walk into the center of the room to start it, so mentally prepare yourself and then walk in when you're ready. Time will freeze and a number of hourglasses will spawn on the ground. You have to pick up each hourglass before the timer in the center completes a full rotation, or you'll be one-shot. The longer you're in this phase, the slower your character will move. Having the increased movement speed boon helps out quite a bit here, but it still slows you down a lot, so it's important that you plan this out and don't have to backtrack. Toward the end of the fight, maybe the last 25 or 30%, he will start to toss out the time-stopping bubbles at random, and also create areas on the ground with the time reversal mechanic that you likely came across earlier on this floor, where if you step through it, it starts a timer and then teleports you back to it after the timer completes. Just avoid these as much as possible and finish off the fight. Zarokh has the potential to drop a number of unique relics, and each of those relics enable a challenge run if placed in the relic altar before the trial. Completing the run with that relic will award you with a special unique. Note that these relics are a one-time use, so whether you succeed or fail, they are gone after you start the run with them. I personally haven't completed or even attempted any of the challenge runs, and don't really have any plan to anytime soon. To be completely honest, I'm just not good enough and don't have the patience to attempt most of them, so don't expect a video from me covering those, but I wish you the best of luck if that's something you want to go for. Time Lost Jewels are also a reward exclusive to this trial, that when placed in the passive tree, can enhance passive skills in a radius surrounding it, like this. These ones I found aren't very good, but to demonstrate it, if I place this one here, all small passive skills within its radius would give a 1% increased fire damage, damage with maces, and a 2% increased life leech, and notables would give a 5% increased stun buildup. With good rolls, these could be very powerful. While the Time Lost Diamond is a unique drop from one of the boss challenge runs, you can find Time Lost Rubies, Sapphires, and Emeralds in the chests awarded at the end of the floor. They are found in Time Lost caches, so if you see any of those, you'll probably want to open them. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like me to cover the Trial of Chaos and the Trial Master fight. I ran through that a few times recently as well, so I have the footage ready if it's something you'd like to see. If this video helped you out at all or you enjoyed the video, be sure to give it a like or subscribe to the channel. Helps me out a ton and is greatly appreciated. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.